You're saying something.
Yes, Neo is definitely going to create a new, you can say, helping hand for the teachers because students they are more techno savvy than teachers, and now teachers they are having a sort of, you can say, weapon in their hand with which they can help their students to get greater heights. So it is going to create a new, you can say, learning experience for the students. It will definitely have, I say, a very good perspective.
Very true. So now quickly for everyone else, I will also summarize everything in a couple of lines. So we all know that how drastically the world is changing because of technology. Every field is getting disrupted, and education is one of those fields which is getting disrupted big time. And in ways that has already started seeing its effect. Like if we see, there are like so many layoffs going on right now in tech industry because things have been automated and the whole job scenario is changing, right? And here just at this point, while we are discussing that things are changing and AI has come in and things are getting automated, if it is such a big issue, should not government pitch in and take some drastic steps? And I think that's what government has tried to do with NEP. So when we look at NEP, it's a 66-page document, but it is so dense and it's so wisely crafted, like so thought through. Hats off to the team who has designed it. But yeah, like before we get into the depth of NEP and how it is relevant for today's discussion, just one more poll going live in your polling section. What do you think is one of the most important goal of NEP? So there are a couple of options there. Make education relevant. Is it to make students future ready? Is it to develop critical thinking skills of the student? Or it comprises of all of them? So again, I see that our teachers are very well versed with NEP also. So good to see that we have a very smart crowd here. Yeah. So yes, I think as all of you are guessing it right, uh, while NEP wants, the ultimate goal of NEP is to make students future ready because government is realizing that economy will collapse if the current education system continues. But the thing is just that government has been slightly lagging in implementing these policies, and the education institutes like the schools are lagging even more, and which is putting the overall education system a bit in jeopardy. So which is why we want to first establish, like, teachers are the driving force of any economy, especially in India. And that's why it's very important for first teachers to understand that what is ahead of us, what we need to do, and how we can go about it. And for that we have put together this panel so that the teachers who are holding the future of this country in their hands, you know they have to be empowered first. And technology is just a means to do what is actually needed at the time of the hour. It just makes the execution easy. uh, and For that, it is first important that you know revisiting the foundation of education and understanding that what skills to be developed and how we can go about it. And the last part comes that how technology can help us there. So yes, I think with that context, we will inaugurate the Monsoon Marathon. And the first of this series is framing right questions. This topic has been decided after a lot of research around the significance and importance of asking questions in the learning process. Like, we often underestimate it, and that's why the just to kind of establish that how effective asking questions can be, our whole presentation would be in a Q&A format. So all the participants are requested to be active participants, because that's what we are going to promote here. active learning via asking questions, answering, and so we expect you also to be active participants here. One catch about the Monsoon Marathon series events is that while there would be participation certificates for the individual events also, the real certificate, which would be a kind of authorizing your understanding, your learning, your progress through the whole course, will actually be dependent on how active you are within the session and after the session. So when we are asking questions, when we are running polls, how actively you are participating in that, plus how actively you do the hands-on assignment after the event, that will reflect in your final certificate, which you'll get towards the end of the whole workshop. So, with that, all the very best. Let's all make the session very engaging. Please keep talking, participating, sharing your views. And yes, I would, with that, open the platform for today's event, which is on framing questions. And I'll just share my screen now for that.
मौत में भी है
My screen is visible to everyone.
और मसाला डाले मसाला
Yo, yo.
है तो
We will just put on mute others who are not speaking. I would request the other hosts to please manage that. I will be now moving on to the presentation slide. Srinidhi, just please see that the others are on mute. All right. So let's start with why ask questions. I mean, how important are questions in this whole process? Can't is to be done with it? Like, won't the student get by one-sided communication? So, this question I would like to direct to Shali ma'am, who's one of the experts on today's panel. Ma'am, what do you think about it?
Thank you, Shweta. I want to start with that. Usually, we prefer to mimic the answers, whatever we have taught in the class. So, we have to ask the questions to understand the critical understanding of the students. It is not only mimicking the information, whatever we are getting. It is for a teacher. It is very important to getting to know about the critical thinking, learning style, and the reflection of their own teaching. How impactful they are in the class. So questioning is always be the self-reflection also, and the litmus test of their teaching also.
That's very true. That's very true. And I think one thing that I would also like to add here is, like, when a question is thrown at someone, like, you, me, any of us, whenever a question is thrown at anyone, our brain generally gets into this different state, which is more stimulated. The cognitive load increases, and our brain is a different state altogether. And when we feed the information to the brain in that state, that information is retained much longer, and it kind of it is the comprehension is better and retention is better. So that is the kind of magic that just asking question before giving a
Ma'am,
verdict.
I think
Yeah,
Shweta, sorry I am disturbing. There is some Vasan something. Can we ask ma'am to just mute her?
yeah. Please, I think everyone keep yourself on mute, and request the hosts also to keep an eye. If someone gets unmuted by mistake, then maybe we can mute them from our end.
Vasanta Priya ma'am. Vasanta Priya ma'am, humble
All right. I think, thank you. So yeah, I think we'll get back here. So that's how, like, asking a simple question, it stimulates the brain, and then after that, when information
Absolutely.
is feeded, it is more impactful, right?
Yeah, you have touched upon the cognitive demand. This is actually the Bloom's taxonomy, and somehow the community, those are with us, around 178 members are here. So every day in the other one or the other way, we are following this only. So cognitive domain definitely explains everything.
Right, right. So asking question is very impactful. There is a whole lot of research that has been done on this topic. There are books just written on this, like how magical is the simple, thing of asking question. Even if you want to, order someone to do something, rather than stating it as a statement or a request, if you there's a psychology behind it, deep psychology. If you just put it as a question, the person is much more likely to do it. So but then since it would be beyond the scope of this workshop to get into deep depth of every aspect, so we will just leave at this establishment that asking question is very, very impactful. So, okay, agreed that questions are impactful, but then when do you ask the questions? How can you time them such that the impact is maximum, right? So, Shalimar,
So
what's your thought on
yes,
this?
questions are the powerful tool. We all know about it. Actually, asking questioning itself is the ultimate learning skill. Though we are in this profession, then also we are polishing ourselves day to day to get the correct answer or to get analyze the correct learning. When we are talking about it, this is the actually the power and efficacy of a queries to understand this. Another thing, what they think, how their mind is developing, how open minded they are, and most importantly, the age criteria. The similar level of questions you can't ask in every class. Even
Right.
in the class itself, we are having the different variety of students. So, according to their understanding, the question framing may differ. So, that skill somewhere we need to work, and we are working on it.
That's true. That's true. I think yes, and I think one more very common practice when it comes to asking question is that many people practice that, once we have taught something or completed something, then maybe towards the end we conduct some examination, right? There we put some questions, and the objective for which we are using question is merely bound to evaluating and ranking the students on their understanding and comprehension. But what
Absolutely.
the questions can do is probably much more than that. It goes beyond that. And
Here, I want to add also one more thing. I really need to understand from the members, those are here, they must have heard about the IRE model for the questioning. Can anybody just type it? What is
It is
IRE model, which is
IR,
nowadays very
IRP model, ma'am. It is IRP model.
Easy, moderate.
no, ma'am. I am asking IRE model for the
Okay,
questioning
okay, that's
technique.
okay then, fine. Yeah, right. Please go ahead.
Can I get
It's
it?
kind of
Anybody is aware about
initiation,
it?
response, and evaluation. Yeah, it's the
Sorry,
initiation,
ma'am.
response, and evaluation.
Absolutely. Whatever we are teaching, we have to initiate, respond, and evaluate. This is the IRE model whenever we are creating any question bank or any question. And along with this, we are nowadays going with the KWL strategy also.
I would like to add something into this, if I'm allowed.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Most welcome.
Yeah, because we are doing the capstone project with class 11 and 12, and there we actually start off with our problems with the 5W1H. In class 10 they learn about the 4Ws. Why, what, when, where. So that is actually our project definition starts with questioning. So that is again the student is contemplated to research, ask question to themselves and find suitable solutions. Yeah, so it's very important, to ask relevant questions. Yeah.
that's true. That's true. So, all right. with that, I think I would like, since we are discussing, we just finished the discussion around when to ask the question. I just want to
I would
put
like
one.
to add one more thing, ma'am, here. I would like to add one more point here. Just like ma'am said, first it should be initiation, then response. And after evaluation, there should be feedback. Feedback should be immediate. If we keep the students waiting for the feedback, it may spoil that you can say taste of the thing they have done. Those students who
Ma'am, I am
perform
adding
very
one more
good, they are
thing,
waiting
feed
for the response
forward.
very immediately.
Because ultimately we are taking them from one journey to the another journey.
True, true, very true.
Yes, ma'am. Right, you are correct.
So, everyone, there
So
is
if the
one
feedback
whole
is given
life
immediately, it
around.
Actually, what Shelly ma'am said was
Yes, one
evaluation
whole around
is
when
a
to
part
ask
of
the
feedback.
questions.
I mean, evaluation encompasses the feedback. Evaluation here, if you look at what NEP says, everything has now become student centric. So, ma'am, when we are talking about evaluation, it does not stay with the teacher. Evaluation is also now considered as an appraisal, as a student appraisal technique. Where, am I right, Shelly, ma'am? That is exactly what you
Absolutely,
meant.
ma'am. Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
Right. So again, this specific workshop we will create we will keep a specific to the question part of the whole funnel, because the whole series takes care of different aspects of the learning journey of the student through this funnel, wherein the evaluation, reporting, feedback, everything will come in detail in the upcoming sessions. So coming back to now that we have established that questions are very impactful, they have huge significance, and we have established that it's important. They play a very important role at all stages of learning, not just after learning, but also before the process of learning and during the process of learning. So before the learning, we do assessment to stoke their curiosity, as someone has rightly mentioned in chat also from our audience. That is very important. A student should feel like they want to know about that specific topic. So questions to stoke curiosity, and then questions to assess that the foundational skills of the student are in place, so that he can understand the next topics that will build on that foundation. So a pre-assessment kind of thing that kind of checks for the academic foundation of the student. And then during the process of learning, we focus more on our reinforcement, whatever we are teaching, reinforcement of that, retention of that, comprehension. So those kind of questions. During that is what we call formative assessments. Even NEP is putting a lot of emphasis on formative these days. And then towards the end, we do the summative, that kind of do a whole it's kind of exit ticket for the whole chapter, wherein you can put a seal there that okay, this person has understood, wherein these multidisciplinary questions also come in, that kind of conceptualize and summarize, mix up all the concepts. So yes, we have established that all stages of learning questions add value. So now, what type of questions to be asked, and at the what stage is it? Is it like we can ask any type of questions at any stage, or there is some mapping that specific questions are more effective at a certain stage? So for that, I would like Deepa ma'am to shed some light there. Uh, Over to you, Deepa ma'am.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Shweta. And of course, I will always begin a session on what type of questions to ask with the Bloom's taxonomy. And this is so encompassing in our education system that I'm sure that we are all very well versed with it. In fact, after having seen a lot of chat responses that we are getting, Shweta, I think we have 189 educators who are really passionate, and they're sitting with us on a Saturday, and they are also, actually, the chat that I'm reading is an educating experience for me. So let's make this more interactive. I want all of you to keep answering a few questions that I would like to ask. Instead of my telling you what's Bloom's taxonomy, I'm sure you already know about it. Um, let's just quickly revise. So, can somebody list the 6 domains of the Bloom's hierarchical model that categorizes our learning objectives into levels of complexity and specificity? So, if somebody can either speak or write in the chat, that will be wonderful. I mean, would anybody recall for us the Bloom's taxonomy when you're talking about what type of questions to ask? I'm sure
So
that
it
a
is
lot of
knowledge,
yes,
comprehension,
Param Shah
evaluate,
talks about respond and
knowledge,
evaluate. Um,
knowledge response, then knowledge comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation.
Absolutely right, ma'am. Absolutely right. So I think that was Sri Radha, ma'am, if I'm not mistaken, because my screen is a little haphazard. I mean, there's a lot of things going on the screen at the same time. So yes, we have 6 domains, which are remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So yes, absolutely right, Binu ma'am. You've summed it up perfectly. So if you all can look at the chat box, we have, like in the year 1950, when Benjamin Bloom talked about this taxonomy, it was also improvised a couple of decades later by his own student. And now, as we all know, the nouns have changed into verbs. So we talk about, so the way Research Vidya, if that is your name, talks about, with the ing, that is absolutely the right way of talking about the taxonomy now. We are talking about remembering, then understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And yes, Aruna Puri ma'am, absolutely correct, with a lots and hots, which is the low order thinking skills and the high order thinking skills in it. So here, when we talk about the Bloom's taxonomy, which we already have very well ingrained in our education system, we also are glaring into a lot of things, like we are all becoming global citizens and we all have the NEP to tackle. So NEP is a policy which has been, furthered with a framework that we have, the NCFSE, which was launched in 2023, which clearly, talks about the different types of questions and the different types of transactional methodologies and assessments that we need to think of. So while we are still at the Bloom's taxonomy level, which is not going anywhere, we also need to integrate into it elements of the NEP. So we have our art integrated learning, we have our competency based learning. We are talking about SDG integration into our goals. We are also talking about integrating 21st century skills. So, I mean, look at the a variety of questions that we need to look at. Yes, Aruna ma'am, experiential learning. We have multidisciplinary activities. We are also talking about subject enrichment activities. So, looking at the wide plethora of tasks as an assessor, how do I frame questions? What type of questions do I ask? Is the big question in front of us today. So let's do a little activity. Can somebody give me an
Before we
example?
move on to the activity, are we moving on to the question generation activity, Deepa?
Sorry.
Are we
No,
moving on to, okay, this is another one. Okay.
no. It's just that I use a lot of chat box and make it a little
All
more
right. All
interactive.
right.
We have 200 educators, ma'am, And I've seen the kind of response that we are getting in the chat box is phenomenal. And
Yes.
look at them. I mean, I have hardly told them anything. They are telling me everything themselves. So they have summed up the Bloom's taxonomy, and
Like
they are
this
telling it.
is a experiential session, like in true
Yes.
sense. Like we are just facilitating, and the audience is leading the session.
Absolutely. So we are all here. There are no panelists actually. We are all panelists, and we are all in this journey of taking up a case study. Yes, Gargi ma'am, sports integrated learning is the latest that has been introduced, and
Even
CBSE.
Deepa ma'am, here I want to add one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
If those have not gone for the DRR, which is
Yes,
also available for the CBSE thing, the
yes,
beautiful document has been given over there,
yeah.
and actually everyone should refer it because they have given the questions also and 360-degree evaluation technique also.
Technique also.
What
Yes,
actually what
but
the
they're talking
NEP
about
is asking
self-study
us.
and self-directed learning. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely right. So, is there anybody, Shweta, ma'am? If you can just sum it up for me from the chat box. If there is anybody who wants me to expand on Bloom's taxonomy, or are we very well versed with it already? So, if you can just answer in yes or no, if you want me to touch upon and take you through the Bloom's taxonomy once. Okay. So, one person
Yeah.
says a yes. Okay. Okay. All
So I
right.
think maybe we can quickly touch upon the
Yeah.
levels and yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, we always begin with the basic uh, paradigm of we talk about remembering, like when we are gauging our children or when we are transacting in a classroom. What is the hierarchy in which we need to plan our lessons? How do we plan our learning outcomes? So we actually begin with remembering aspect, which is the base of the paradigm, the matrix that we have. And then we move on to understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Now, remembering, understanding, and applying are the base level. And we also refer to it as LOTS, which is the low order thinking skills. So, for example, if I have taught my children about how plants make food, then if I ask them to define photosynthesis, it is an example of a remembering question. If I ask them, what is photosynthesis? So basically, I have already taught them in the class and they would have memorized it. And now they will just speak out what they have listened to and have remembered. So that is the remembering part. Yes, Gargi ma'am, we are talking about recall. So the best definition of remembering is recall. When we are asking them to recall, this is the base level. And we all know that there is a very famous quotation that says that, you know, education is not just the filling up of a, we are not filling a jug, right? So but remembering part is just that it's just that what have we put into their brains and what are they coming up with. So when we define something, when we list something, the keywords of questions that start with remembering, recognizing, identifying, listing something, uh, describing something, or retrieving something, or naming something, locating or finding something, an activity. Suppose I have an activity which says that count and write the number of mammals in this picture. So that will be a recall activity. I will recall who mammals are and then I will count and write. So these are examples of remembering, right? We next move on to, and I'll make it a little faster. We next move on
We
to,
have to make it a little faster.
we'll have to make it a little faster. So after remembering, if I talk about the understanding aspect, I'm talking about interpreting, exemplifying, summarizing something, or whether the child is able to explain the ideas and concepts that I have taught in the class. So whether the child can classify, whether the child can compare. So classifying, paraphrasing, comparing, explaining. These are the keywords of questions which talk about understanding of concepts, right? Next, we talk about applying. Now, if I define what applying is when the learner makes use of the information that he has learned in one context to another context. So when I have given you some knowledge and you are applying it in another context, so that is the next level that comes after understanding the application. In our language, we often call it application based questions. Yes, Mr. Swarup, Miss, I don't know. Applying means when subject is in action. So when you are implementing or carrying out something, and when you're using the knowledge that you have, you're executing the knowledge that you have. So when I ask the child, can you use the information in another familiar situation? So what will you do? So if I have taught the child of how will you apply first aid to a minor cut, now I'm asking the child to can you now tell me how will you apply first aid to a small boil? How will you do it practically? So this is application of knowledge in another context in a real life situation. So next we move on to analyzing. Now this becomes a part of our higher order thinking skills. Analyzing is typically when the learner breaks learned information into parts to best understand that information. So when you are asking a child to compare and contrast, to organize, to deconstruct something, to outline, to attribute, to structure something. So if I'm asking a child to create a concept map of the given topic, that is when the child will analyze and structure the information that I have shared with him. So analyzing is, kind of introspecting the knowledge that the child has already received. The next part is evaluating. Now I'm asking the child to understand, analyze, and then move on to creating a judgment of the concept. So when you're checking something, hypothesizing it, or writing a critique of something, when you are experimenting or making a judgment, or when you are testing something, when you are trying to detect something or monitor something, these are typical questions, typical examples of when you make the child evaluate. The last aspect of Bloom's taxonomy is to create. Now, as we all know, in the original taxonomy, create was at number 2, right? And now creating is the top of the league. And it is more relevant today in the times of AI, when we have to bring the child to this particular level where the child is able to create. When you're talking about designing, constructing, planning, producing, inventing, devising something, making something on your own, you are asking the child to create. And believe me, while it was considered HOTS up till now, in the times of AI, and Shweta will, I think, definitely take it, because AI is here to stay and we must ride the wave. It is that in the times of AI, our lower order thinking skills have already been automated. So the child will get validation in real life situations and scenario only when we bring the child to the level of creating. And that is where we really would need the intervention of AI in our day-to-day transactional methodologies. Now, having said and having summed up Bloom's taxonomy for you, I will just talk a little about NEP and how we need to integrate these assessments with art integrated activities, competency based learning. I would like to take just a minute to talk about competency based learning with you. And, uh, like if I have to define competency based learning, it talks about
I
equipping
would just
students.
like to kind of, give a heads up. I think we are at 6:20 almost. A
Okay,
lot
okay.
more left.
Sure,
So we'll just space it
sure,
out. Yeah.
sure. Okay. So, just that competency, I'll just wind up with competency based learning, which is the most important of all takeaways that we have from the types of questions that we need. Is we're talking about, where we are giving, equipping students with specific skills, knowledge, and attitude which they need to succeed. So they need mastery at every level. And Shweta, the most important thing is student led learning, which is a very big issue for us as educators, which NEP recommends, but NEP is not giving us tools to, take this further. How do we apply competency based learning in our classroom? I wish I could talk endlessly about it. There is so much to say. An approach where every student needs to master each and every learning outcome and only then proceed. So it's like every student has learning at their own pace. So I leave it as an open-ended question for all our learned educators here. Uh, Knowing what competency-based learning is, how do we bring it to the classroom? Over to you, Shweta. You're on mute, I think, Shweta.
Yes, thanks for pointing it out. Yes, so I'll just quickly establish like whatever we have covered so far. So questions are very important. They can take the level of comprehension charts off. So we should ask questions, and we should ask at every stage of learning, not just after learning, but before and during also. And then Deepa in very detailed spoke about what kind of questions to be asked at different stage, right? In the very beginning, the comprehension level is like little low. So you go by lower order questions like remembering and understanding. And when the student is able to apply it, gradually you improve, you take it up higher on the Bloom's level. So there is a little poll in your polling section, which is live, which just summarizes whatever we have learned so far. So what decides the type of question that one should ask a student? Options are comprehension level of the student, the stage of learning, personal traits of the student, or all of the above. So yeah, a lot of people are saying all of the above. We
Ma'am, I'm
will,
not able to see the options.
this should be there. I think most of the people, many people are polling. So maybe just scroll down and you should be able to see. So yes, I think a lot of the teachers know that comprehension level and the stage of learning is indeed a deciding parameter. Personal traits of the student, yes, we have not touched upon that, but yet many teachers have voted for all of the above, which includes the personal traits of the student as well. And everyone is kind of giving in chat box also all. So yes, I think we have our answer here. So we are at a good stage. We have established everything very nicely till here. This Q&A format is, it looks like it's working for the session. So with this, we will move ahead. And I think here, I would like our audience to do a small activity. So I will be sharing a very short paragraph in the chat. And I want all of you, I will pin the text here. I want all of you to take a look at it and come up with, few questions of your own, of different levels. Maybe when at understanding level, what kind of question you will form from this, what kind of question you will form for analyzing or evaluating part. We will give this activity about 1 to 2 minutes. You can just type in kind of your responses, your questions in the chat itself.
Shweta, we will appreciate for the competency based also now.
Yes. For different level of competency based, different levels. What different levels of questions can you create? It's a hands-on activity. You can go ahead, read the paragraph, and type your questions in the chat itself. I would also go ahead and maybe type one question. So it's on Newton's law of motion. Mm. And I would like invite all the panel members also to type in their set of questions for this. Maybe not for all 6 levels, but whatever comes to our minds, like the first. So I can think of something like, I'll just create for remember part, the easiest one. What is Newton's first law?
Where is the paragraph, ma'am?
It's in the chat. I have pinned it. I'll just pin it maybe once again. So while folks are typing in, they have already the questions have started pouring in. It's natural that instinctively first level of question comes to our mind also. Like even to form the questions of higher competency level, the teachers also have to apply more mind to come up with higher competency level questions. It's not just that the student has to apply more mind to answer. So this one is really nice. I think Preeti Chaudhary has shared that. Describe a situation in which you had to use Newton's first law of motion to solve a problem or make a decision. What was the situation? What actions did you take? And what was the outcome? A very comprehensive, very smartly crafted question, which covers all the comprehension levels. So nice. I think we have a lot of questions here, but in the interest of time, we will just you can keep in the questions coming in, and we will have a quick review of some best practices on creating questions. So I'll just move to the next slide. So now, while we understand that, okay, there is a Bloom taxonomy that we can follow, and we can craft different set of questions for different stages of learning. Is that enough, or there are some other best practices, do's and don'ts to create effective questions? So I would like all the panel members to maybe add just in one line their definition of a good question, a very good, nicely crafted question. So, ma'am, Rama ma'am, you would like to start?
Yes, ma'am. I think a good question should trigger the mind of the student, and it should be based on what we have taught. It should not be something which we know. Rather, it should be the test of the things which we have discussed, which we have taught to the students. And the question should be
Right.
so the questions
So
should begin from close-ended questions. Close-ended questions can be of yes or no type questions or one-word answer type questions. And gradually we should, means if we'll ask such questions to the students, they will get confidence. And slowly they will, you can say, feel free or feel, you can say, confident to speak in front of the teacher. Gradually we should ask questions which can be open-ended questions. And if
right,
the
right.
questions
So
are
very well.
open-ended, they will get more involved in the discussion and they will, I can say, gain confidence.
Yeah, so I think a very good point added by ma'am. It should be relevant as challenging enough. It should not be too hard. Otherwise, the student might lose interest, or it shouldn't be too easy.
Yeah,
They will get bored and again they will lose interest.
we should
Should be
begin from the
exactly
level of the students, because if the student is a slow learner, we should ask the question according to his or her level. It should not be, and if we're talking to a very good student, very, you can say, who is very intelligent in the class, so that question should be according to the level of the child.
Very true.
Otherwise,
That is
it will be it will waste.
so like matching the challenge level of the question to the student is one very valid point. Is there anything else that any other panel member want to add, just in one line?
Yes, we should have the easy and clear question to unfold the learning and understanding rather than creating a challenging to prove our knowledge. We have to test the students' knowledge.
Very true. Like I can't relate to this more. So many a times we start tripping on creating a very complex question, but I think the most beautiful questions are the ones which are very simple. Just look at it and you get it. Question should be
One
simple.
more point I would like to add, ma'am. The language of the question should be clear. It should not be ambiguous.
True.
Sometimes
Yeah, very
questions they are in very ambiguous form, and child is not able to understand the question. What is the question? So they are not able to answer properly.
right.
Hello.
The
Yeah.
question should
Hello,
also
ma'am.
be relevant.
Hello.
There should be some
Yes, it should be
relevance in the
relevant to the
question.
curriculum. True, the learning objective. Yeah, Mini ma'am, you want to say
Okay.
something?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Good evening. Anyhow, ma'am, your session was really inspiring, and where, as you just told, to frame the questions, no, the questions it should be relevant to the child as per the day-to-day life application. How the even the below average child should know. For example, if the question, if you are just taking about Newton's first law or any laws of motion, the child should just see that where the child is using. So once the child knows that, I feel that he or she can attempt that answer with her own knowledge. Instead of giving the textbook content itself complete in it, where we have the real life situation, give the real life situation. So that makes the questions to be relevant to the child, and the child can do better. That's my humble opinion, ma'am. Shweta, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you. I think we have established
ma'am.
some guidelines also. Questions should be challenging enough, not too easy, not too hard, simple, unambiguous, and they should stoke the curiosity of the learner. They should enjoy. It should not be boring. Like they should not cringe by looking at so much text. So I think following all those guidelines would definitely guide us to creating a good set of questions. Towards the end of the call, I will share some resource material with all the participants, which they can have and they can, keep continuing to refer to whenever they are sitting for any question generation exercise, or maybe reviewing a set of questions. They can just, check it like a checklist. So, in the interest of time, again, I'll just move ahead. I'll just touching up on all the topics fast so we can cover, and then we can have a follow-up session to deep dive into these topics. So, like ma'am said, Rambai ma'am